What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we've got some interesting topics for you guys, so let's go ahead and get right into it. And we're starting off with my first in this series, and that is the Volume 1 of Nintendo Switch games that I would like to see for the rumored or hypothetical Nintendo Switch Pro. So games that I would like to see enhanced, play them again. A lot of you guys have asked me like, hey OJ, what would you replay if there was some type of enhanced Nintendo Switch, almost like a new Nintendo 3DS, where games like Monster Hunter or games like Super Smash Bros. Took advantage of that extra horsepower to get better loading times or look a little bit cleaner, better frame rate, whatever the case is. And I said, hey, you know what? Let's talk about it in like a video, but we can do like multiple ones because there's a lot of games and I think about different things at different times. So let's go ahead and get into the first games here, and that is Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torn of the Golden Country and Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. So all of the Xenoblade games that are available on the Nintendo Switch, those are games that I would definitely play through again, New Game Plus, all that. And to be honest, that's the reason why I haven't went back and played Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition again. I'm thinking, hey, you know what? I have an M cable. It already looks really good on my LG CX. But if they enhanced it and kind of did some stuff a little bit more, DLSS, whatever the case is with a new Nintendo Switch, so a Nintendo Switch Pro or an upgraded model, better some frame rate, whatever the case is, I think that would be really good, especially with Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I think out of all the games, that game is the game that could use it the most, and even like in portable mode or something like that, I think it could really help out. Now, I'm not expecting it to run like 4K, 60 frames per second or anything crazy like that, but just having a little bit cleaner and more stable frame rate, locked in at 30, then also having better resolution, portable mode and all of that for my grinding. When it comes to Xenoblade, I think I would go back and play through all of them just one at a time. So yeah, that would be awesome if the enhanced Nintendo Switch Pro, the hypothetical rumored enhanced Nintendo Switch Pro, could actually tune up some of these Xenoblade games. Next up would be Astral Chain. Now this game already looks and plays absolutely amazing on the standard Nintendo Switch. Heck, even on the Switch Lite, it plays really good. But there are some parts. There's one later that kind of gets a little choppy, every now and then. But for the most part, the frame rate is actually insanely stable and really good. But if they were somehow able, I doubt they would be able, but if they were somehow able to get this to 60 or get the frame rate, you know, maybe even a bit higher than what it was and lock it in, I think that would be pretty dope. Just smooth out kind of everything. But like I said, the game already runs really good, but I would just like to see it with the higher resolution and whatever the case is. I mean, there's no chance that I think they can get it to 60, but if they could, that would be very interesting because they would need a much more powerful system to do that, and they'd have to kind of retune and refine everything, going back and just like, it'd probably take too long and they probably wouldn't do it, but it would be awesome just to see the game, of course, like the better resolution too. I think that would be dope to see it, you know, with DLSS and kind of upscaled a bit, because the game already looks beautiful and would look even better on that OLED screen if the rumors are to be believed, or on your 4K television, because I actually recently played it again and the game is just beautiful. The art and what they did graphically with the game is just so impressive. They did more than with less than like I think Platinum Games has ever done when it comes to one of their bigger end games. Astral Chain is just a beauty to play and look at, but man, playing it on an enhanced Nintendo Switch, I think that could even be better. And last but not least, for this first volume is the classic, is the game that started it all for the Nintendo Switch, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I think that this game, obviously, you know, it's a port. It's not something that was made for the Switch in mind. So you can see that in some parts of the game, whether they had issues with the coding or whatever the case is at launch, it was definitely a little rough. Now they did patch it multiple times and it ran better and better with each patch. That was a bit ago, but it definitely plays amazing because I was actually playing the game a lot for a video that I did last year with Persona 5 Royal, and the game still plays just fantastic. The game still to this day, you know, it's not too old, but still doesn't feel like, oh, you know what, feels kind of dated a little bit, 2017, you know, other games have come out and just done things way better. It just doesn't feel that way. Breath of the Wild still feels very good, but if you had that enhanced resolution, you got that all the way up to, you know, higher, the 4K DLSS, you got that frame rate completely smoothed out to where there was no slowdowns whenever it's raining and lots of enemies or whatever the case is. I think that would take an experience that already is a 10 out of 10 for me and make that like an 11 or 12 out of 10. And I just want more reasons to go back to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And if you want me to be honest with this whole thing, is that I just want more excuses to go back to some of these games that have defined defined the Nintendo Switch and defined, what I love about gaming. All of these 3 games, well, kind of more than 3 if you count all the Xenoblade, but all of these franchises have defined so much in what I love about the Switch when it comes to the aspects of the system, being able to play anywhere that you want, getting your game time in, grinding on the go, whatever the case is. And it would just be awesome if we can go back to that, but also have a reason to as well, because I've already beat these games multiple times and kind of went through some of them. Well, some of them I beat multiple times, Legend of Zelda and stuff like that, but it would be just great to have that. So it's something that I'm looking at it from my perspective as if they were able to do this, which I think that they can. I've talked about this before, then it would be cool to kind of go back and play some of these games. But this is my volume 1. Of course, let me know what games you guys would go back and play. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Next up, we're going to talk about an article that's being passed around quite a bit, and it's a potential acquisition of Square Enix from someone else. So according to Bloomberg Japan, they're reporting that multiple parties are currently looking at acquiring Square Enix Japan. Bloomberg put that out there, and I was like, wow, Square Enix being acquired, what's going on here? I mean, how much would they cost? Square Enix, they have Final Fantasy. I mean, they're worth a lot of money when it comes down to it. So what's going on? Is Square Enix having some financial trouble? Like, what's the deal? And the more that I looked into it, there was more that I thought that, wait a minute, hold up, there's something wrong here. And that's exactly what I found with Mr. David Gibson, who's an analyst over there as well. Noted analyst. He's been around. He's been to Nintendo investor meetings and all that. Very noted analyst. And he states this: FWIW. Think it's bankers trying to drum up business. Stock been under pressure because of failure of Avengers. No doubt it has great IP, but already has commercial agreements with Sony and Tencent. So this is interesting that he says that. So commercial agreements with Sony and Tencent, maybe long-term agreements, because you have to remember Bethesda did also have agreements, right, with Sony in terms of certain games and stuff like that, which are still going to come out. But would that stop it from actually happening? Now, I do think that there might be some truth, not even might be. I think that there is quite a bit in truth in terms of what David Gibson has to say here. I think that it is trying to drum up some type of, look at Square Enix and kind of getting more eyes on them, potential trying to drum up business. Stock prices obviously aren't quite there because Avengers, they were expecting Avengers to be like this massive hit like Destiny that sells for years to come, and everyone's buying the microtransactions and everyone's playing the game because it's Avengers, right? They expected that, and that's not the case. They had a plan set for it with all like the free quote-unquote DLC or whatever the case is, new characters, but the rollout's been slow and the gameplay's been hampered by some of the issues with the game since launch, when it comes to the combat, when it comes to some of the drops, and when it comes to the variety of gameplay and the severe lack of characters. And like, that's one of the biggest problems with this game. So I do think that it could be just that. I see what David Gibson's saying here, but if this did happen, this would be crazy. And of course, people are going to go nuts with this type of article. You're going to see people saying Microsoft. Of course, you're going to see people saying Sony. They have a good relationship. Heck, you're probably going to even see people saying Nintendo should go throw their hat in the mix and buy them. And let's just say this is true, or this could happen, which I don't think it will. I don't think anyone's just going to rush out and buy Square Enix. This would be something that just, Square Enix would have to be struggling more than what's going on here. Final Fantasy would have to take a nosedive or some type of dip to the point to where it would be to where they're vulnerable. But right now at this point, I don't think it's quite just there yet with Avengers. But if this did happen, I mean, imagine what people would be thinking about. Imagine the type of possibilities, right? I mean, people would probably look at Sony. People have been saying that, oh, well, Microsoft is going to acquire some type of Japanese developer. Could that be Capcom? Could that be Sega? Something like that. Nothing has come into fruition just yet at this point, but Microsoft does have pretty much a endless pocketbook when it comes to it. But you have to look at it from a company like Bethesda, right? That fits what more Microsoft is trying to do and where they're going to sell games and everything like that. Whereas I'm not sure if Square Enix fits the bill type of thing that they would pay an exuberant amount of money. Because yes, it would be in the billions because Square Enix has a ton of IP, and they have the Mac Daddy, they have the Big Daddy of RPGs when it comes to sales, and that is Final Fantasy. So I don't think that would be something that Microsoft would do, but something that Sony, if they could pay that type of money, I think Sony would want to do that if they can get their hands on them. I mean, they've worked on so many exclusive stuff for Sony, big games, different types of promotions when it comes down to it. The new Forspoken game, that's coming as a console exclusive to the PlayStation 5. Final Fantasy 16 as well, plus Final Fantasy 14 came to PS5. I mean, it's not on the other systems just yet and everything when it comes to like the newer gen and all that. So it's interesting. It's very interesting to see, but if one of them was going to buy them, I would say it'd be Sony. That would be the thing for me, at least. I don't think Nintendo would even try to acquire Square Enix. If they left it, be like, all right, well, okay, no more Bravely Default or whatever the case is, right? So I think that would just happen there. At least no more Bravely Default on Nintendo platforms. Would be to wherever they want to go. I mean, depends on who picked them up, right? If Sony got them, obviously no more on there. But the interesting thing is that I don't think this is going to happen, though. I am not so sure about it. I'm kind of more in line with what David Gibson's saying. These type of acquisitions don't happen very often, and I just don't think Square Enix is in the position right now at this point. Maybe there's people that are talking about it, but I don't know if Square Enix is saying, yeah, that we're going to let that happen, right? So anybody can talk about buying somebody or whatever. People talk about Sega all the time, but it still need to actually go through the value of the company. There's just so much stuff to look at when you talk about these type of things. So I'm not sold on that yet, and I think that Square Enix is going to stay just put as how Square Enix is, but we're gonna have to wait and see fully. So what are your thoughts on everything? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Check out the links in the description. We've got Twitter. Go and give us a follow on there. Stay up to date on all the latest gaming news and information. Also, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video if you can. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you for the next one. Peace.